Hello, everybody. Welcome again to the Rotten Horror Picture Show, the horror movie podcast, where we talk about movies off the 200 best horror movies. Damn it. I went too hard too fast.
You were all on top of it with like professional radio Clay voice.
I thought I was going to get the Ace Ventura one breath thing, but it didn't work. The horror movie podcast where we talk about movies off the Rotten Tomatoes 200 best horror movies of all time list. My name is Clay, and with me, as always, is Amanda. Amanda, how are you doing?
I am good. How are you?
I'm good. Before we get started with our wild card episode, we do have to check back in with our list.
Yes.
Because there has been some fewer shakeups than in the past. Like generally, everything kind of shifts.
Yeah.
There have been fewer this time, but they are fairly significant.
Okay.
So there was a handful of movies that shifted one number up or down.
Which is the kind of the usual when we come into one of these, like, everything's moved, surprise, our numbering scheme makes no sense anymore.
Yeah, there's a couple that have moved a couple off and are now back to their original number. But the headline item here is that The Shining, which has been sort of our barometer for
what's wrong with the rating
what's
system?
What's wrong with the rating system? And also be like, which side of The Shining should a movie be on when we talk about where it belongs in the list?
Right.
It started off at number 101. Then it moved to 113. Then it moved to 111. Then it moved to 112. So it's kind of been shifting around the same area.
Yeah.
It has now jumped all the way up the list to 77.
Okay.
So it is moving more towards where it should be. Still probably criminally low, unfortunately.
Yes, but less so.
Taking the place at 101 is Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, I'm mad about that now, too.
Yeah, which fell down from 88 to 101.
What is wrong with everyone?
In probably this is interesting because in the biggest shift, probably this one's just been bouncing all over the place. We have Ginger Snaps, which started at number 131.
Right.
Then it moved to 144.
Okay.
Then it went up the list to 128. Then it dropped down a space to 129, and now it has jumped all the way to 147.
Huh.
Yeah.
I wonder, like, why that one so specifically? Like,
I don't know. That one seems to be bouncing around a lot.
I know we've said this kind of thing before, but I would absolutely love to talk to whoever designed the algorithm that determines this list, or the editors that put it together, or like whoever at Rotten Tomatoes has some insight or control over how this list is aggregated.
Yeah.
I would love to have a conversation with them and just be like, what?
I would love to speak to the grouping of zeros and ones that creates this list.
I would like to speak to your manager, please.
Yes. Bleep blorp. Black Christmas, officially, again, not on the list. Not even with that other name that it was under. It is no longer on the list.
Oh, God.
The number 200 spot right now is Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 Dream Warriors, which has been in like the 190s and now is occupying the final spot there.
I wonder, I mean, I'm sure a lot of this shakeup is because we are in, as the women on the internet like to call it, spooky season.
Spooky season. Spoopy Go-Go Day.
I wonder if it's because there's a lot more attention on scary movies right now.
Yeah, probably something like that.
Yeah, and it's just like how many users are reviewing
things.
And,
which movie is getting the anniversary bump?
Yeah,
because people are talking about it again for the first time in 40 years.
Yeah, seriously.
The one, just to round out the other changes, we've got Black Christmas off the list. Poltergeist has gone from 127 to 140.
Okay.
After starting at 137. So that's kind of been bouncing a lot. Yeah. Quiet Place Part 2. Oh, God damn. The Bloom is Off the Rose. No longer on the list.
Wow.
It was number 60 when we covered it, and now it is gone.
Wow. So that one purely was just a function of being like the hot new thing.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Huh.
The Invitation was at 116, moved to 117. Now it's down to 125. And The only thing that I saw scrolling through it that I can point to as an instigator for the shakeup is that currently on the list, I don't remember what number it is because I don't have the thing up, is the new Candyman from 2021.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's higher than the original Candyman. It's like in the 140s or something.
This sounds like a Quiet Place Part 2.
I think so, yeah.
Situation, though.
Well, what's funny about it...
Hey, this is out.
What's funny about it, though, is Quiet Place 2 was on there almost immediately.
Yeah.
Candyman's been out for a while.
That's
and it has
true.
only now jumped onto the list.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I wonder if it's a more organic, people are still going to see it because they actually really like it, not just because it's like a hype machine.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are
again, scary movie time.
Yeah, and I think what's it called? The Jordan Peele of it all is going to put it on there too. I don't want to say that that's a shoe-in, but it seems like,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's understandable that with his last couple horror movies being such huge hits that people would.
Yeah, there's lots of people writing about him and talking and covering them and stuff. And, that's not to discount Nia DaCosta, who directed it, who did a very great job. But we'll get to that one eventually at some point. Yes. But today we are. This is our 45th episode, which means we are doing a wild card choice, which is my choice this time, to round out our conversation on werewolf movies from 1981. Even though we're not talking about... That
sounds like the most niche Jeopardy category that I've ever heard of in my life.
It kind of could be, because there was four of them.
I love it.
There was American Werewolf in London, which we covered. There was Wolfen, which people seem to love. I thought was boring as hell. I don't ever plan on watching that again. There's I think Return to Full Moon High or something like that, which was just a straight comedy.
Yeah.
And the movie we're talking about tonight, which is The Howling.
Yes.
Which has always been my preferred werewolf movie in the battle of the
1981 werewolf
the prominent 1981 werewolf horror movies.
Yes.
Had you seen The Howling before?
No, I had not. I hadn't even really heard of it.
Really?
Yeah, I think I had heard the name.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? I was vaguely aware that there was a werewolf movie called The Howling, and I don't even know if I even specifically looked it up, or if I just scrolled through something, saw a horror movie called The Howling and went, werewolves, and then just kept going. Yes. But yeah, I was pretty ignorant going into this one.
You know what's funny is you say, werewolves.
Yeah.
But apparently at the time that was not, people didn't assume werewolves, because I guess one of the things they did with the marketing is they cleverly had the claw marks. The poster was claw marks, but then a person's face behind it. They weren't screaming werewolf at you.
Yeah.
It seems you kind of figure out what's going on fairly quickly, but
yeah, but
even
I can see it.
Yeah. I imagine there's one person who went to American Werewolf in London and was like, I don't like those werewolves. I'm gonna go see a regular gritty slasher movie called The Howling.
Yes.
Wait a minute. Is there werewolves in this too?
Second.
I'm never disappointed by the appearance of a werewolf, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Did you know there's 5 Howlings? Actually, there might actually be 6 that get progressively worse. And the third one, they're actually famously bad. Howlings 2 through 5 are famously bad. And The Howling Part 3 takes place in Australia.
Oh.
And it doesn't have werewolves in it.
Are they hyenas?
They're kangaroos.
Kangaroos?
Yeah. Or possibly marsupial. That is a marsupial, right?
Oh my
Kangaroo is
God.
a marsupial. Anyway.
I'm sorry. I'm just imagining a were-kangaroo.
Yeah. It's a weird-ass movie.
It's really getting to me. I'm having a problem over here. I don't know what to think. I don't know how to feel about humanity. I might need to lie down.
Yeah. Well, I had seen The Howling. I think I saw The Howling first before I saw American Werewolf in London. And that might color my like of it a little bit.
Yep.
But it also...
The Howling.
The Howling police are here. I also... The Howling kind of has more of the stuff that I tend to like in it. But we can get into that more as we talk about it. But, however... It has a 72% Rotten Tomatoes score. It has a 58% audience score, which I find very surprising. Because this feels like the kind of movie that people would have fun at. I don't know why people don't like it.
I gotta say, I was lukewarm on this one.
Ugh.
Podcast over.
Fine.
Friendship over.
Well, we'll take a quick break and play the trailer, and then we can decide what we're going to do on the next episode without Amanda.
What do you see?
The Howling. Somewhere in this city, in this human jungle, it begins.
Just try. He's right there.
What do you see?
What's there, Karen?
What do you see, Karen?
What's there?
Somewhere in these woods, in this primal, sensuous, secret place, lies an experience too terrifying for words. And now, all anyone can do is watch and wait.
Tonight I'm going to show you something. Make you believe.
The Howling.
All right, The Howling, directed by Joe Dante, written by John Sayles and Terrence H. Winkless, starring Dee Wallace, Patrick Macnee, Christopher Stone, Elizabeth Brooks, Kevin McCarthy, John Carradine, Slim Pickens, Robert Picardo, Dick Miller, and the kings of boomer monster obsessions, Roger Corman and Forrest J. Ackerman. Forrest Ackerman, if you're not familiar, is hopefully, if you're listening to a horror movie podcast, you know who Roger Corman is. If you don't, he's the king of low-budget film, basically, and he's 90-something years old. He's still producing movies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but he did the Edgar Allan Poe movies with Vincent Price. He started the biker movie craze in the 60s with Henry Fonda.
Huh.
He gave starts to so many people who became like massive Hollywood players.
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson, Francis Ford Coppola, Martin Scorsese, James Cameron,
Holy shit.
Gale Ann Hurd. Ton of people came through the Corman School, which teaches you how to make a good movie for no money.
Yeah.
Or a bad movie for no money.
Either way, no money.
And Forrest Ackerman is the publisher of Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine. He's the guy in the movie in Dick Miller's bookstore. There's an older man with glasses on who just has like kind of a quick interaction with Dick Miller.
Yep.
And when he turns around and walks away, he's holding 2 issues of Famous Monsters of Filmland, which is the magazine that many people from Joe Dante's era and after even were into and kind of got them into monster movies and stuff like that. I think they show up in Friday the 13th Part 4 in Tommy's bedroom somewhere.
Probably.
It was big in that era.
Yeah.
Amanda, what happens in The Howling?
In Los Angeles, television journalist Karen White is traumatized in the course of aiding the police in their arrest of a serial murderer. Her doctor recommends that she attend an isolated psychiatric retreat led by Dr. George Waggner. But while Karen is undergoing therapy, her colleague Chris investigates the bizarre circumstances surrounding her shock. When his work leads him to suspect the supernatural, he begins to fear for Karen's life.
Okay.
A wholly inaccurate summary.
Yes. Yes.
The minute I got to the name Chris instead of Terry, I was like, it's misogynist bullshit right now.
Yeah, Chris really doesn't show up until the end of the movie.
Yes.
I applaud how quickly he decides to jump into action.
Yes.
When he's told about the werewolves, but still.
Yeah, not trying to take anything away from Chris, but I just feel like
most of
the proactive early stuff and in the oh shit, what's happening here is from his girlfriend Terry.
Yeah, most of Chris's screen time is spent driving to the climax of the movie.
Well, Clay, Some things you will find in this movie include the best magic book store in America.
I wish if they had made this movie now and I was like a producer, I would try to pitch a spin-off that was like a horror anthology starring Dick Miller in this bookstore where, you know, every book has a story, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Basically, I think what the Friday the 13th TV show was. But it's so... I wish every magic book came from this store.
Yes.
Because it's so refreshing to see like an occult bookstore run by like just a guy trying to run a business.
Yeah, and it's like fully light out. Like
Yes,
there's no candles anywhere. He's like, no, that's stupid. It's a bookstore.
Yeah, like I feel like he probably gets coffee with Ray from Ghostbusters.
Yes.
Because Ray's occult is across the street.
Yes.
They're probably talking about getting screwed by the distributors and stuff.
I want to own and run and live above that bookstore.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Fireside werewolf sex.
The other thing I would do if I remade this movie, I would say my pitch would be, okay, we're doing the Howling, we're doing the werewolf transformation sex scene for real. Full on in camera transformation, A to Z, werewolf sex. We're making it happen.
Gross.
I know. It would be awesome.
You will also find in this movie Fuckboy Bill.
Yeah. Karen's husband is a bit of a...
Fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mazda shaming.
In probably my favorite line of the movie.
Not all of us can afford a Mazda.
I found that line so irrationally funny. I don't know why. It probably was more kind of straight at the time because Mazdas were probably more expensive and
right,
rare.
an imported car. Yeah.
But now watching it again, it's just such a great shitty thing to say to somebody.
And the worst hamburger ever cooked.
I have to imagine that was on purpose.
I really hope so, because if whoever designed and shot that end moment thought that was an appetizing looking hamburger, I worry for their health.
Yeah.
Genuinely, I have concerns.
Yeah, I assume it was meant to be gross on purpose.
Yeah, I would hope so.
So the Howling. I saw this I think I saw this before I saw American. Honestly, I'm actually not sure now. But I do know that this movie has a lot of stuff in it that, like, stylistically and execution-wise, that I personally prefer over American Werewolf.
Yeah.
This came out, this was 1981. It feels like it's from, like, 1977.
Yeah, it really does.
It's really gritty.
Yeah.
Like, it opens in gnarly, gross New York.
Is it New York or L.A.?
Either one. It's one of the.
It's a major city in the 70s in the United States, so it's a hellhole.
Yeah, it's very kind of like the city of Taxi Driver kind of feeling.
Yes, yeah, that's a good comparison.
And it opens with Karen going to meet this serial killer in a sex store, and it's really seedy and back rooms, and
she's been like put up to do it by the TV station that she works for.
Yeah, he's clearly... is he a serial killer? At the very least, he's a stalker of her.
Yeah, he's definitely a serial killer. There's like the radio, or not radio. There's the announcements about it, like, the known serial killer.
Yeah.
Yes, and he's been stalking her. Yeah.
And I find that kind of like grit and sort of like grindhousiness to it more interesting, especially for a horror movie. I've always felt like American Werewolf is a little too slick for me. I think between the two, the two big reasons that I prefer this are, I think it's a lot more interestingly shot as far as like lighting, and especially when they get into the monster stuff.
Yeah,
you get these really great like dark scenes with light coming through the slats of the windows and stuff.
Sure.
And the other thing is the monster itself. I've always preferred this transformation to...
Really?
I think because it doesn't just feel like a guy stuck on the floor. Because I know in American Werewolf, like part of the newness of it is and what made it kind of novel at the time is that they were showing you this transformation in like the flattest full light possible.
Right.
And I guess, yeah, that's fine. But I find this transformation so much scarier and creepier. And I love how much it's built into the way the guy moves and stuff. So some of his movements accent the changes. Like, there's a great moment in the middle of it where he kind of like puffs his chest out right as they activate this like bladder thing that just rips his shirt open, and it's such a cool look. And I also have always got, maybe this is a good place to jump off. I've always felt that while the Howling and American Werewolf are both very aware of the movies that they're making, they're both chock full of wolf references and various other literature and film and whatnot. I've always kind of felt like the Howling leans into it more, like leans into the fact that it's making a monster movie, and American Werewolf has always felt like it was a little bit embarrassed that it's making a monster movie, like it's a little more tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with the tongue-in-cheek aspect. I think it was kind of going for something a little closer to camp.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, whereas this one's playing it. I don't want to say it's playing it straight, but...
No, there's plenty of camp in this movie, I would say.
But it's still trying harder to be more intense or more serious about the werewolf aspect of it.
Yeah,
I feel like.
So what are your general thoughts on it?
I mean, so... I did enjoy it. I was saying right before we started recording that I feel like my notes on this one are kind of scant because I actually spent more of my time just watching the movie. But like, there are parts of it that just feel either like maybe slightly missed opportunities, or I don't know. There's just like so much of it is so contrived. Like the whole like, oh, you know, her news station just like volunteering her to help the cops catch this serial killer who just so happens to have also been stalking her. And then it happens, and then everyone's immediately horrible to her.
Yes.
Like she goes through this really horrific experience of getting cornered by a serial killer, and she's alone, and then she watches him get murdered by the police in front of her. Like that's really horrifying. I feel like even in the 80s everybody would have been like, she needs like to take a vacation or something, and instead they're like, get on the news, little lady. And it just feels a little bit like I guess like I had a hard time with this movie at times because I found so few people to root for. Sure. And like it just felt like, wow, okay, so her husband sucks, her work sucks, the city she lives in sucks, her life kind of sucks, her doctor sucks, and now she's been sent to this colony place where everybody's clearly fucking insane. Like right off the bat, it's really obvious that everybody's kind of screwy.
That's why they're there, Amanda. They're there for help. They're there to center themselves in werewolfness.
But there's just not like there's not even there's like the one girl that she kind of becomes friends with while she's there. But even she's like way too into. She's like, "Hi, it's so nice to meet you. Why don't you come with me? I'll show you everything." And it's like, don't go with her. She's crazy. Like everyone here is crazy.
Yeah, I do think when it comes to, obviously this is by no means a perfect movie.
Sure, yeah, and I mean I'm coming down kind of hard on it. I think partially because I know you like it, so I'm gonna like
doing this on purpose.
Yeah, I just like making you mad.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always found the colony aspect to be really interesting to me because why? I guess if you really want to get into this and kind of like pull it apart, I can't figure out why the idea would be to send her there.
Yes.
Because it's not, I mean, well, I guess they kind of, at the end, they kind of get into it a little bit, don't they? Where the doctor's like, she can be the one to bring us to the basically like if we get this person who's on TV to turn into a werewolf, then she can reintroduce us into the modern world. Long way to go for that ham sandwich, I think.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that makes this movie, we both I kind of remarked at different times to each other, I think, on how it feels like it's from the 70s.
Yeah.
I think the colony adds to that because there is this sort of like almost like hippie commune,
Sure.
like which were big in the 60s and then sort of continued to exist in the 70s, but often went very wrong.
Yeah.
And this place has that vibe. But it's still like when you think that this came out in 1981, it just feels a little weird to have her going to a commune that like everyone seems to kind of know about and be generally fine with.
Yeah, that's the other thing, because it's like spoiler, everybody at this colony is a werewolf.
Right.
But the doctor wrote a book about it, and
yes,
you would think they are taking new people.
Exactly.
So are there other people there who are not werewolves, or is this just a community made up entirely of werewolves?
Like the local sheriff is a werewolf too, and it's just like, I think for me at that point, it's like, why not just have the contrivance be here? I have a vacation home.
Sure.
On the northern California coast, it's rugged, but it's peaceful. It'll get you away from all of this.
Yeah.
It'll give you a chance to, commune with nature and recharge, and just have, the neighboring community of people who live in that area be Werewolfville.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think I didn't look it up before this, but if I remember correctly, I believe the script for this was written very quickly.
Yeah.
And like John Sayles, I believe, was known for being able to hammer out pretty solid scripts very fast.
Yeah.
And I do remember a story about him where if he was running behind on something, I think someone was living with him or something, and he'd be typing on one thing, and then the producer of his other movie would show up, and he would go, 1 second, and he would take that script out and put this guy's script in, be like, hard at work.
Did you hear the typing? It was all for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think this movie suffers from having a lot of really interesting avenues to kind of make comments, but they never really go all the way with it, and they never really kind of like coalesce super well.
I agree, and I know like the comparison we're going to keep making, and the natural comparison for this is An American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason why that movie works for me more is not because it's like better written or better acted or like makes narratively more sense. I think that movie just works for me more because I find it more fun.
Sure. Okay.
Like there's just a certain level of like, we're going to go fully off the wall.
Yeah.
We're going to have him talking to his dead best friend.
Yep.
We're going to have him act like a complete psycho all the time. And I think that I just find that that one more enjoyable to watch.
Yeah.
Whereas this one it's, there's not a lot, like I said, there's not a lot of redeeming qualities for most of the main characters.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of kind of odd people, downright bad people, kind of just generally crappy people, and then like 2 to 3 decent-ish people.
Yeah.
Like,
and most of them end up dead.
Right.
Yeah, I have a tendency to give a lot of points for trying stuff or ideas, whether or not they are 100% successful. Because I would rather see a movie that's kind of like doing some stuff or trying some weird shit that doesn't totally land than just kind of a boring middle of the road movie. And I'm not saying that's what American Werewolf is, because American Werewolf is like from top to bottom, I will say it knows what it wants to be. Like it is very much a product of, that's the movie that John Landis wanted to make.
Yes.
This one,
and it is trying some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one, I feel like I appreciate all the kind of like different shit they're throwing at the wall.
Yeah.
Like watching it this time, I really picked up on the weird like media stuff, like the media commentary that like starts and ends the movie, but doesn't really have anything to do with the middle of it.
Yeah.
Because like you were saying, they're sending her out to do this really dangerous thing, and then afterwards they're treating her as like, like, well, can you get on camera? Like they're clearly making points or taking shots at the media.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really amount to much outside of the beginning and the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And like, the very end scene when she turns into the werewolf on TV.
Yes.
They cut to the viewers who are like, yep, the news lady's turning onto a werewolf again. And like it's like, oh, what have we seen before? And but
one
like,
of them even says, "Oh, it's amazing what they can do with special effects these days."
Yeah, and like that's fun.
Yeah.
But and like the beginning and the end, those two scenes work really well together.
Yes.
But like I don't at the end of the movie feel like, oh, this was a meditation on media and the treatment of women in the media sphere and violence on TV and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just like some stuff that's in there.
Yeah, and I completely agree, and I think that's what I was going to start. I was kind of starting to circle around this a little bit. Like, as usual, I'm working out my thoughts and feelings about things as we talk about it.
Sure, yeah.
But when I brought up like why the colony stuff feels really contrived to me, it does feel like a separate movie.
It does, yes.
Like it feels like two very different movies are happening at the same time. Yeah. There's like the opening with Karen, kind of being used as bait. And then like Chris and Terry's story of trying to kind of figure out like who was this guy, this serial killer, what actually was going on here, is sort of tied into that because they are her colleagues and friends, I think. And then the end scene, those things all feel of a piece. But then Karen's relationship with her husband Bill and the whole colony thing feels like a different movie. Yeah. That's trying to make maybe like some points you can connect, but like generally different points and generally like a different vibe.
Yeah, because the colony stuff, it feels like, oh, now they're going after like new age self-help stuff and how ridiculous that stuff can be.
Right, or even how dangerous that stuff can be.
Which is
because like
cool.
And that's really interesting coming out of like we were saying the 60s and the 70s where there were these like communes that often devolved into like places where like serious abuses of power occurred and
they even make a reference to Jonestown, I think.
They do. And so like that's really interesting too. Like if you look at the colony as more of an allegory for just the normal seeming people who got roped into these communities who then became monsters. That's really interesting shit. I want to go more into that about how like one charismatic leader can like seduce people into doing things they would have never otherwise done. Like that's really scary. That's an interesting concept. And then like the media stuff and like the inherent like misogyny of like modern media and television, like especially back in the 80s, like that's also very interesting of her being like used as bait and then expected to just kind of get on TV and perform for everybody's enjoyment. Like all of these things are really, really interesting concepts. There's just too many of them in like a 90-minute movie.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing that's making them feel so disparate is the fact that Karen is such a worthless character. Yeah. Because like I was
spoken
watching
like a real Bill over there. Jeez.
You just don't know what it's like, Amanda. She's probably pregnant or something anyway. Yeah.
God.
That was my favorite line from the beginning when Kevin McCarthy just like, well, she's probably pregnant. Kevin McCarthy's the best. Kevin McCarthy, the lead actor from the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yes.
But I know him and will always know him as R.J. Fletcher from the Weird Al movie UHF. He's the villain.
Never seen that.
He's the villain in UHF. So
okay.
That's what I see anytime I see him. It's like, oh, that's the guy from UHF.
Okay.
He also in that movie also plays the head of a television station. So But yeah, Karen. As I was watching it this time, this is the first time I had watched sit down and watch this in a long time.
Yeah.
Which oddly enough, there wasn't. It didn't seem to be there. There was no HD stream of it. The stream that we watched was fairly kind of grimy, which kind of worked for the movie. Yeah. But there were some pieces I was kind of hoping to see in HD, like when the colors get more vibrant and stuff. Anyway, but Karen is the potential is here.
Yeah.
For a real finding your strength story.
Yeah.
Given that you've got this character who's being thrust into a dangerous situation and not really respected by the people she works with.
Yeah.
Then they go to this colony and she's not respected by her husband.
Yep.
Or even the people around, think she's crazy, blah, blah, blah. And then you would think, okay, well, this is setting the stage for her to have some sort of character change where she finds her inner strength and kills the literal monsters while also killing the metaphorical monsters. They don't do that. She kind of stays helpless through the whole movie.
Yeah, if anything, it's actually, in my opinion, even a little bit worse than that, because she's set up at the very beginning. I think I kind of said or implied earlier that her network producers were forcing her to do this.
Yeah.
But she seems like she wants to help.
Yeah.
She seems like she has opted into doing this. This guy has been killing women and he's been harassing and terrifying me, and I'm not just going to sit back and take it.
Right.
I'm going to actively help pursue and capture this terrible criminal. And that's really fucking ballsy. That's really brave, and that's an impressive thing to do as somebody who you're a TV presenter, you're a newswoman, you're a news journalist, you're not a cop, you're not trained to handle these things, you're not even trained in psychology or anything, and she's still gonna put herself in very real danger to try to help other people and stop this guy.
Right, yeah.
So she starts from this position of being kind of an unlikely badass and then goes downhill from there.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is so disappointing because, if the arc had been more she starts off as this sort of almost stereotype of the ball buster, strong woman and whatever. And then she's kind of taken down several notches by this experience with this serial killer. But then during the middle of the movie in the colony kind of rediscovers her strength on a more solid foundation.
Yeah.
And then swings back up to sort of rescue herself or herself and others maybe. That would be a more satisfying character arc for this person.
Yeah.
And instead it's just wow, what a badass journalist putting herself in harm's way. Now she's completely traumatized.
Yeah.
That's it.
Continues to be traumatized.
and then she gets killed on TV.
Yeah.
The end.
Yeah, I think ultimately what would have helped a lot is if they had pulled a Shining and had Chris get killed as soon as he gets there.
I was thinking that, or even The Fly. Where in when we watch The Fly and it's the guy comes, the ex-boyfriend comes to save her.
Stathis.
Yes, thank you. And he comes and he helps, but he also ends up really injured. And and the girlfriend there has to be the one to kind of step up and save the day.
Yeah.
Sure, have him do that. Have him come and provide the car and the silver bullets, and then have her be I'm going to get us out of this.
Yeah, it is so strange the way that they handle her because she does nothing to help her situation. But then at the end, she's got this moment of selfless heroicness where she is going to go and change into a werewolf live on camera in order to, I guess, tell everybody that werewolves exist. And it seems like a little too little too late at that point for her character. It's a great ending. I like the ending, in a vacuum.
Sure, yeah.
But I also for some reason she turns into a Pekingese instead of a werewolf.
I know, she turns into a Shih Tzu or something.
Yeah.
She's a werepuppy.
And I would even like it if, I think it would tie things together better if that was the end of she's got her mojo back. She's slayed these inner demons. Now she's going to go show the world. And then it's a big dud because of the television violence stuff they'd set up.
Right.
Like, then it feels like, oh, okay. It's a downer of an ending, but it feels more in line with the rest of the movie.
Yeah. Like maybe she doesn't have to get killed in a blaze of glory on TV, but like still nobody believes it.
Yeah. How do you feel about the other characters? Because I think her husband sucks.
Yes.
But I think he's a good character in that he sucks the appropriate amount. I don't think I think most of the characters in this are pretty good. He's definitely kind of interesting in that he's trying to be supportive, but then ultimately isn't because he gets seduced by the sexy she-wolf lady.
There's definitely like, I think also it's tough looking back at this 40-year-old movie and like applying how we might feel and how we might see things now to how it was seen then. But like his shittiness feels so heavy-handed to me.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you know, like I feel like it's interesting. This is going to seem like a non sequitur, but my husband and I just watched Midsummer.
Okay.
And the relationship in Midsummer feels like the more modern equivalent of Karen and Bill's relationship.
Yeah, that's actually a really good parallel,
Yeah. So it's like, but in Midsummer, you sort of spend most of the movie kind of feeling like, okay, here are two people who are not right for each other, but they're both at least somewhat trying.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to a point where you sort of are like, oh, wait, maybe this person just sucks.
Yeah.
Pretty much right away with Karen and Bill, I was just like, oh, this guy sucks.
Yes. Yeah.
Because even when he introduces himself, they're like, oh, you must be Mr. White. Like you're Karen White's husband. You must be Mr. White. And they're like, he's like, no, it's O'Neill. She goes by her maiden name at work. And he says it in this way that's like so clear immediately that that fucking pisses him off.
Yeah.
But he won't say anything about it because, she should know better, but she doesn't. So I'm just going to be over here passive aggressive. And then she's like assaulted by this serial killer who, like I said, then gets killed in front of her.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody knows what he's done to her.
Right. Yeah.
Like she doesn't even know. She doesn't remember. And he like immediately tries to put the moves on her in bed. And then gets real mad gets real huffy about the fact that she doesn't want to have sex.
While I am not excusing that.
Uh-oh, here we go.
No,
Fuckboy
it's just
Bill apology time.
No, it's not that. It's just like I think you might be able to get to space that up being like, all right, we don't exactly know how much time has passed, but even still, that's a big thing to get over. And he, at the very least, should not be mad about it.
Yes, yes. So that's what I'm saying is like I can't tell if that just is such a glaringly huge red flag to me now in the year 2021, whereas maybe in 1981 there'd be a little bit more of a feeling of like, well, yeah, I mean, she did go through a lot, but you can't blame him. Like that is hard, the rejection. Your wife shouldn't reject you like that.
I don't think that you should ever say you can't blame him because
sure, maybe that's the wrong. But I'm just
who's the misogynist?
I know,
Amanda.
It's look, internalized misogyny is a real problem.
Yeah, for you.
Yeah. No, but do you know what I'm saying? Like, I wonder if it would have been, more of like a red flag that you sort of caught in 1981 that felt like, ooh, that feels weird. Don't like that. Whereas now it just seems almost like cartoonish. Yeah, I think you're right. Point.
I think looking back on a lot of these movies, that stuff is going to stand out more now than it did. Yeah. Because I mean, when we talked about Black Christmas.
Oh yeah.
Black Christmas was like, we were like, oh wow, I can't even believe that they got away with this. And I don't mean that like from the standpoint of like, man, you can't make movies like this anymore. It was just like so on the nose about how awful women were treated. Yeah. And we like couldn't parse out whether or not it was commenting on it or it was like, this is just how people did things.
Right. Yeah. So like once you are sort of like looking back at this and you're trying to take a historical perspective, it's hard. It's hard to say like, do I hate Bill so much just because I'm looking at him through a modern day lens?
Yeah.
Or did audiences at that time look at Bill and be like, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
What a jerk.
Yeah, I have to imagine that the intent is more the latter. Like they knew how shitty they were making him.
Yeah.
Because the beginning of the movie is so clearly all the men in her life are being shitty to her.
Yes.
You know, the thing about, maybe she's pregnant.
Right.
Get her on camera, even though she just got assaulted. You know, when she goes into the sex store, the guy's like, I knew I shouldn't have let a chick into his store.
He calls her a broad.
Shouldn't have let the broad in, drove out all the customers. You know,
I like that voice. I don't know what that character was.
That voice shows up more often than you'd think on our podcasts. Sean and I have invented an entire Batman character who just talks.
Oh,
like
there you go. That's actually that fits. That fits. I see it already.
But yeah, like they're very see that's one of the things that's kind of confusing or unsatisfying about this movie is like they're so clearly setting that stuff up. I feel like that the fact that they don't deal with a lot of it makes you kind of go, oh,
yeah.
I guess that wasn't what they were doing.
Right. Like, is that guy, are we supposed to think that guy's behavior was generally okay? Because there's really no, there's no kind of moment of catharsis over it.
Right. Yeah.
And then you do have a character like Terry, the other lady journalist, as I'm sure they would say then, who is treated very, like, fairly. And
I like Terry.
Terry's great, but I mean, like, her and Chris, they seem like they genuinely like each other.
Yeah.
Like, not only are they dating, but they're like, they actually like each other, and they seem to work well together, and they investigate this serial killer and try and figure out what's going on, and you see none of that sort of like underlying misogyny directed at her.
Right.
Like she escapes it all somehow.
Yeah.
And it's so overwhelming whenever Karen's character is involved. The misogyny is like so overwhelming. It just feels like a little bit like, oh, we're just going to put all the douchebags around her. But then Terry can be like kind of a, badass, like putting the pieces together.
Yeah.
On her own.
Yeah, and it does go further to make it frustrating because the lion's share of this movie is she's literally at a therapy clinic.
Yeah.
And deals with none of her problems. Like, and I don't even mean like I need to see her work through the 12 steps of whatever.
No,
just
but
like,
isn't there like only one scene where they sort of have her close her eyes and like talk through and try and get her to talk about what she saw?
Yeah.
And she just kind of screams and freaks out, and they're like, well, that's enough for today.
Yeah.
And then that's it. Like, that's the extent of her therapy. Everything else is just her sleeping in a weird nightgown or wandering around in the woods in the dark.
Yeah. But I guess I mean like, I don't mean like literally seeing her go through therapy, but just like if you set a story about someone with a problem, if it's a horror movie, someone with a problem, it's set at a therapy clinic.
Yes.
They are going to go through some sort of therapy.
Yeah.
In some way that is probably not literal therapy.
Right.
But like in this case, werewolf therapy. You know what I mean?
Surviving the werewolves would
Which,
have been her way of working through the trauma.
Yeah, which they don't do.
Right.
So it feels I think her character is such a missed opportunity.
Yes.
And I do consider this kind of a classic horror movie, but I would say this probably could be remade and improved on.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the other characters, I like Terry.
Chris is fine. He's like kind of milquetoast.
Yeah, Terry and Chris basically exist just for expository purposes.
Yeah, and that's too bad because they really could be sort of the anti Bill and Karen.
Yeah.
Like there's I think more I wish there had been more opportunity to put those four characters together.
Yeah.
And kind of contrast them.
Yeah. It is, you talk about contrivances. I do feel it's fairly contrived when Terry goes to the colony after Karen calls her because she just can't handle it or whatever.
Right.
Like, it's like, why not send both couples there? So you can get, and so it would be like, so Terry can be like, Karen, you do the thing you're going to do. We are going to go investigate this other thing for whatever reason. I mean,
Yeah.
at least you have to come up with a reason why they would go there and why they'd be investigating in that area. But at least it would get them there in a more organic way instead of Terry going by herself and then calling Chris while she's being killed by a werewolf to be like, Chris, it's a werewolf. Chris, great boyfriend that he is,
Yes.
on board immediately that it's
Hops
werewolves.
in that Mazda and fucking books it.
Yeah, and then spends the next 15 minutes in traffic.
Yes, or
But-
getting gas.
Yeah, we're getting gas.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like there's more organic ways to kind of like to play those two couples off of each other, especially in this
Yes.
therapy thing. And
Yeah, and it's that feels like a missed opportunity to me. I do like the fact that some of the background characters at the colony, as much as they're all clearly kind of crazy weirdos, there are enough of them that you can kind of like be like, I've seen that guy.
Sure.
I saw that guy walking around, but like, I don't know. I think I like the sort of like the loose weirdness of a lot of the background characters, because like the only one who's really is it John Carradine?
Yes, the old man.
Yes, he's like very in your face. Like night one, he's like, I can't do it anymore. I want to end it all. Put me in the fire. And they're like, no. And so like pretty early on, he's nuts.
Right. Yeah.
But there are some other characters who are just kind of like generally unsettling in the background, and then a few people who look pretty normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But just aren't really given much screen time until the very end when it's like, blah, we're all monsters.
Yeah, I do like that other couple where the wife is like, yeah, I've tried everything, Scientology, blah blah blah, TM, blah blah. Blah. Like that's fun. Like I kind of wish there was a bit more of her.
Yeah, or even other characters too, if not just her. A more sort of like a giving a sense of like, because this place isn't just a therapy like retreat. It's not just a thing people go to for 2 weeks and then they go home.
Yeah.
It's a place where all of these people live together.
Yeah.
It's referred to as a commune, which implies that at least some amount of these residents are permanent and they live together.
Yeah,
and
definitely the ones wearing bones as necklaces.
Right. I mean, me too.
Yeah.
But like you would assume you'd see more sort of interactions between them and more of just like, I don't know, sharing chores or debating what to do about something, or like, we need to repair this cabin. Like, well, do you want to do it now or next weekend? Like you don't get any of that like sort of mundane interaction between anybody. It just kind of very seems like, I don't know, like grown-up summer camp.
Yeah, you don't get the scene from Friday the 13th where Paul is telling everybody what needs to be done around the camp before the kids show up.
Right. And I kind of want that. Like I sort of want to see, because these, you find out that they're all werewolves. Mm-hmm. And so they're all somehow connected. Like are they born werewolves?
That's the other thing.
Clearly a bite or a scratch turns people into werewolves, but like, are there people that have intentionally become werewolves? And if so, like, who brought them in and why? And how are they connected? And like, I don't know. You sort of get like a glimpse of that towards the end in the barn, where they kind of decide they're not going to follow the doctor's direction anymore.
Right, yeah. But
you don't really get a sense before that there are like any warring factions or like different philosophies on how to live their lives as a group of werewolves. Like I wish you could feel some more of that tension beforehand. Yeah, and you also, I mean, this is a therapy commune that is all werewolves. Yeah. And they never do the thing where it's like, before I came here, my life was a mess, and then they showed me what the real way was, and the real way is becoming a werewolf. Or even the more like, I'm really sorry, but like, I know I screw up sometimes. I just, I get these like violent urges, and I'm trying to learn to control it, like the doc says, and like, I know I'm behind everybody else. Everybody else has made more progress in the treatment than I have, but I'm having a really hard time. And you think it's like somebody talking about their anger management problems, and it's really that he keeps going out and killing the neighbors.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
like there's so much you could have kind of done, even in just like very quick, almost like seemingly throwaway scenes.
Right.
To sort of establish the fact that there is like a tension in these werewolves, these werewolf people, about like what are they doing?
Yeah.
How are they living? What's going on?
Yeah, I think ultimately the thing that hurts this movie the most is it moves so fast that they just don't have any time to get into any of that stuff, and it's a bummer.
Yeah, and they keep kind of adding more of it in.
Sure.
And
yeah.
I think one of the things that works in American Werewolf for me is that it seems like you become a werewolf. Like when you transform into a werewolf, you're just a mindless beast.
Yeah.
You're just the monster at that point. And so there's no community of werewolves. There's no like hierarchy or social structure. They're not debating chores.
Well,
and
that's why they're just roaming around getting shot on the moors. That's why.
Right, as they should be, because they're werewolves.
Yes.
But do you know what I mean? It keeps things simpler.
Yeah.
It keeps things more like you're not asking these questions when you watch that movie, because you're just like, no, he's a werewolf.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a philosophy. He can't control it. He's a werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
They can control it. They just will themselves to turn into a werewolf or not.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to kill people, why don't you just not turn into a werewolf?
Well,
Like not transform.
It seems to be like that's the thing that gets lost in the therapy commune. Is it seems like the thing that they're teaching there is like becoming one with your inner beast kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like embracing your inner beast.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like giving lip service when the doctor's talking about his book and stuff,
Yeah,
but they never
the
really
gift.
Yeah. But the gift of being a werewolf.
Yeah.
But they never really get into it at all. Cuz like honestly the thing that makes the most sense that they don't do is that the reason they send her to the commune is because in her interaction with Eddie, she gets scratched. And so the doctor knows what's coming, but she doesn't.
Yeah,
so he's like, you know what? Why don't you come out to the community for a while and work on it? And so it's all about like,
wow, that's a much more elegant way. And honestly, like then you could have it be like, look, there are more werewolves in the world than everybody thinks, and these accidents kind of happen pretty commonly. This is really just summer camp for baby werewolves, where we teach you how to handle your shit before we let you go back to the world.
And like you can still do the stuff with her husband, where her husband is like getting into it in a negative way,
right?
And like really getting horny about it and stuff,
going full feral.
Yeah. But but that way the commune makes more sense. The therapy aspect makes more sense. And then at the end, what have you got with the character of Karen?
Yeah,
you've got someone who is now fully, or at least more confident about the fact that they are a immortal monster. Yeah. And is going to bring that back to do with whatever she's going to do after she decides that these monsters need to be killed or whatever.
Yeah, or even just have it be the sort of two separate factions within the colony of, the people who would be maybe more like Karen, who are kind of saying we need to control ourselves, we need to not hurt people, and then have fuckboy Bill go the other way and be like, no, being a horrible monster animal is great. Let's kill everybody.
Yeah,
and then pit them against each other at the end.
Yeah, they only touch on that like in a couple lines of dialogue in that barn sequence where it feels like shit. We forgot to mention this. Have somebody just say it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the main problem I have with most of this movie. It's just that it's like, where are you going?
Sure.
Where are you going, buddy? I don't know. I can't tell. Is it over there? Is it over there? Like all good directions. Please just pick one.
Right. Yeah. Well, one direction that's fantastic is
Harry Styles.
Is Harry Styles. Oh yes.
Ha.
I'm not young. Is the werewolf transformation, which is was supposed to have been done by Rick Baker. He was supposed to do the special effects in this, but he ended up getting caught up and ended up doing American Werewolf instead.
Yes.
So his protege, Rob Bottin,
yes,
did the special effects for the Howling. Rob Bottin one of the best special effects guys in the 80s did The Thing, RoboCop, Total Recall.
We have definitely talked about him.
We definitely have, yes. And so it's fun to have, like, between those two movies, you kind of have like a master and student kind of like battle of the werewolf transformation.
Yeah.
And I think that scene in this one is awesome. I think the effects are very cool, and they lean into the thing that Rob Bottin does a lot, which is he makes his stuff look great, but shows you like very little of it.
Yeah.
So like the lights are always, it's very creatively lit a lot. So it's a lot of like, highlights, and everything's kind of like greasy and shiny in a bit.
Yep.
But a lot of lights are off. So he's kind of hiding the seams a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you could say that Rick Baker didn't have the luxury of doing that. And like, that was kind of the point. But yeah, I've always really loved I think some of the full werewolves are kind of goofy.
Yeah.
Like they can get a little bit silly.
Yeah.
But the actual transformations I think are really well done. And I also really love the severed hand that turns back from the werewolf hand into the human hand. That's
that
done
looked
really well.
really, really good.
But yeah, that one big showpiece transformation with Eddie is really great, I think.
Obviously it is. Obviously it's amazing. But it's interesting to me because I think in a weird way I still prefer the like Baker's version in American Werewolf, because, and part of it I think for me is circumstantial, because you know me, I get very stuck on like the story.
Sure.
It doesn't make any sense to me that like these transformations in The Howling take so long.
Yeah.
They
Karen
take
just stands there and watches.
so long.
Yeah.
And whoever's the victim, whether it's Terry or Karen or whoever, they just hang out and wait for it.
Yeah,
and it's like,
I like, at least in the second time they do that.
Yeah.
When Chris shows up.
Yes.
He just starts like vibrating, and it's like, we're going to do this again. And then Chris just like Indiana Jones shoots him.
Yeah, but it's tough because it's like, on the one hand, I get it, like you'd be so stunned to see this horrific thing happening in front of you, and it's also just like a way of giving the transformation the time and the space that it deserves, because it does look so good. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like in American Werewolf, the first time, what's his face? I'm blanking on his name.
David.
Thank you. Yes.
Haha, I got one.
You did it.
I only know it because it's the same name as the actor.
Keeping it simple. That's how you got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
When David transforms for the first time, he's alone.
Right. Yeah.
So it can take as much time as they want it to. You can get as much of the full effect of it all as you want to. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense narratively. Like, no one's around. So it's like, yeah, no, but it's not like in the midst of this confrontation.
Right.
Whereas this one's, it's in the midst of this confrontation. And like,
yeah.
She knows, like, he's a known serial killer. Yes. It's not even like it's Chris, her boyfriend, who was bitten, and he comes in and is like, I have something to tell you, and then starts turning into this horrible monster. Then I could understand having Terry be like frozen in horror and fear and not knowing how to react, because it's like, but I love him and I trust him and he would never hurt me, but also what the fuck. Mm-hmm. And instead it's like, no, he's already a serial killer, even when you just thought he was a dude. Like, get out of there. Like, throw something at him, please run away.
Yeah, I guess I kind of give it a little, I cut it a little slack, because I'm thinking like I'm gonna chalk it up to creative license, where it's like, if
Sure.
you are watching it and you are engaged in the transformation,
right,
you're gonna forget that how long it's taken to do,
right. And I'm sure there's also an element of like the view we're getting as the audience is like kind of these close-ups of different parts of him as he's transforming. These things could all be happening simultaneously.
Sure, yeah,
which would cut down on the time.
Yeah, but yes, I mean, I do think it's one of those weird filmmaking things where it's like, I feel like maybe if they didn't cut back to Karen just kind of standing there like with her hand up watching, it wouldn't stand out as much.
That's a really good point, because it does feel so like so much of the transformations are just like Okay,
Right.
come on. Like I think it also maybe hurts it that it is at such a climactic confrontation.
Yeah.
Because you've gotten the momentum going of the story
Mhm.
and you want to see what's going to happen. You want to see, oh, is she going to make it? Is she going to escape? And then you have to sit and wait for like 4 full minutes while,
Right.
you know, skin bubbles and everybody oozes. Like, it's really cool looking, but it's also a little bit like you've stalled the momentum.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fair. The only other thing to mention is the music, which is by Pino Donaggio, who
Not Slim Pickens.
not Slim Pickens. Slim Pickens is such a great name.
I cannot believe it's real.
I'm pretty sure it is it is either a full stage name or
Yes.
it is a nickname.
It is a name he was
Yes, yeah.
was given or gave himself.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a
It's so great.
classic Western actor. It's always great when he shows up. He's you might recognize him as the evil sheriff from Blazing Saddles.
Oh my god.
So we went in a wampin' and a
Oh my
weapon.
God.
Yeah. Pulled an old number 6 on him. That guy.
I am kind of stunned that I didn't.
Somebody's got to go back and get a shitload of dimes.
I'm really shocked. I'm really shocked. It didn't connect until you said that, and now I feel really dumb. Thank you for publicly humiliating
Oh,
me.
no problem.
This is my therapy.
Yeah, Pino Donaggio is a great composer. His stuff sounds. I have 3 of his soundtracks on
wow.
vinyl. I have the Howling, Tourist Trap, which I'm really looking forward to us watching. Tourist Trap, which is not on the list, but I'm gonna make you watch that one.
Okay.
And Don't Look Now, he also did as well. And he has a very identifiable sound to his music. I can't really describe what it is, but you kind of know when you hear it.
Yeah.
He did a lot of work with Brian De Palma. He did the score for Carrie as well.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, it's the music in this movie. It's the first time I'd watched it since owning the soundtrack, and it's like I've listened to the soundtrack more recently than watching the movie.
Huh.
And so the music stood out to me more this time, and I was thinking to myself, like, wow, this is a pretty big soundtrack that they're laying over like fairly mundane stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's some big music going over
Yeah.
like Terry rotary dialing a phone.
like Chris
and stuff.
driving on the street.
Yeah. It works for some reason, but it is an interesting score to go with this movie.
Yeah, it's interesting because like talking about it now, I see that contrast, but like in watching it, I never felt like, wow, this music is silly right now.
Yeah.
You know how sometimes you watch something and it's like, if the music's really big and the scene's really just like, yeah, and then so-and-so made a peanut butter sandwich, you're like, is this supposed to be funny? Like, what's happening?
Right.
I never had that feeling with this. So yeah, it works for me. It was good.
Yeah. I think that's about it. I think we covered pretty much it. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap it up?
Why is everybody taking walks in the woods by themselves in the middle of the night in this movie?
Yeah, you ever go to camp? That's what you do.
I went to camp and they wouldn't let us do that.
Yeah, you're a child.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot of walking around at night in the woods.
Yeah.
Kind of, it is fairly aimless. At least in
Yeah.
like Friday the 13th movies, they generally have somewhere they're going.
Right. Even if it's like, I
yeah.
got to go pee by that tree.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, I had to comment on that because people kept just like wandering out into the dark by themselves. And I was like, why are you going alone?
Just keeping
Every time.
yourselves open for the possibility of freaky werewolf sex by fire. You know, you never know.
I really thought you were going to say of like personal enlightenment because
That's
it was
true.
therapy
Yeah,
camp.
that
I was
too.
like, oh, okay.
Same thing.
Sure.
This is not on our list. Would you put it on the list?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I need to, since there have been such shakeups, I need to kind of go back and reassess what is even on the list still at this point. Because this is one that is this is definitely a horror movie.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
it's kind of got some of the trappings of the classic monster movie, and that's great. And I feel like we've had several movies where we even kind of debate, is this even a horror movie?
Right.
And in that case, I could see myself maybe swapping this out with something like, if American Psycho was still on the list,
Mm-hmm.
if you asked me, should this or American Psycho be on the list, I would put this on instead.
Yeah, I would agree with
Just
that.
for the werewolf transformation and the sort of classic horror movie tropes that are included. But if you're asking me, would I swap out something like, I don't want to say Black Christmas is on my mind because we talked about it a little bit, but like that one's maybe like, obviously I wouldn't swap that one out, but like, would I swap American Werewolf out in this? I'd probably keep American Werewolf.
Yeah, I think I would put it on the list. I would probably put it in the lower like quarter, like 150 to 200, somewhere in there.
Oh yeah.
I do really like this movie, but I'm also I'm realistic about its faults.
If somebody said this was 180, you'd be like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. Yeah, I would probably put it somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's gonna do it for the Howling. I hit the randomizer button, beep boop boop beep boop beep boop beep boop, and we've landed on number 60. 1961's The Innocents, which, hey, weirdest thing. It's playing at the Brattle next week. We may as well go see it in the theater. That's
what an amazingly uncontrived coincidence.
It's crazy how that stuff just shakes out.
It's
that
like
way.
when your therapist tells you to just go to this colony.
Pliskin, it's true. It was a coincidence.
Oh, hello.
He doesn't believe me. So yeah, that movie, The Innocents, not to talk it up too much, but I saw this movie. I forget where I think like when I was in freshman in college, somewhere around there is like when I first really kind of got into like, all right, I'm going to find a list of the most like the scariest horror movies that are kind of like off the beaten path.
Yeah.
Like ones that you wouldn't necessarily find. It's not just like The Exorcist and Friday the 13th. Some of like the lesser known ones. That's where I discovered Exorcist 3 and The Changeling.
Oh, okay.
And other George C. Scott vehicles. And I think that's where I found The Innocents. And when I watched it, I fucking loved it.
Oh, okay.
It's the photographer on this is a guy named Freddie Francis.
Great name.
Who later became a director for the Hammer movies, did some Hammer Dracula movies. He did my favorite Hammer Dracula movie. He's got a really great style. And if you've seen The Others, the Nicole Kidman movie,
yes,
The Others takes a lot from The Innocents.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, because I really like that movie.
And it's written by Truman Capote.
What?
Yep. And it's
I'm sorry, I'm having a moment over here. What?
Yep, it's written by Truman Capote, and it is an adaptation of The Turn of the Screw.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay, this is way more up my alley than I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
I was ready for like The Devils Part 2.
No. This is a nice, quiet 1960s ghost story movie from Britain. So.
All right, now I'm really excited that we're just gonna go see this in a theater.
I haven't watched it in years. I'm really looking forward to watching it again. So, and I've never seen the theater, so that's gonna be a lot of fun, I think.
Awesome.
But yeah, I think that's gonna do it for us for the Howling.
Yes.
Thank you guys for listening. Oh, also on. What month is this? October. October 20 on Wednesday, October 27th. Amanda and I are going to be doing a live stream where we talk about Halloween Kills.
Yes.
Which is going to be our big Halloween episode thing that we do. We're going to spoil the hell out of it. Yeah. Or maybe we won't see it and we'll just make it up.
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, but it's fun. I find it fun that we continue to do the sequels and have never even done the first one yet. So.
Yep.
But we're trying to stay relevant, and we're going to be talking about Halloween Kills. So hopefully you'll join us for that on Wednesday, the 27th, probably at 8.
Yeah.
Keep your eyes open for the link or whatever. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for supporting us on Patreon, where we are covering Friday the 13th. We have just covered in September. We did Jason Goes to Hell. October we will be doing Jason X, which hopefully Wes will be joining us for. I believe he will be.
Nice.
So that'll be fun. And yeah, you can, if you want to follow that, you can help support us at the patreon.com/the Penske Files. There's a lot of P's in that one, so I get them mixed up. But thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.